Nat, we're back.
Unfortunately for
Yes.
the rest of the world.
Yes, we're sorry to subject you to this again.
You know, I just got back from church and it was raining and I had to walk all the way back to your dorm. And I said no. And it just so happened Isaiah was going to leave my dorm with his bike. And I said, I need to take this. This is security reasons.
No, you did it.
I did. And I started riding. I said, oh, just so you know, I'm just going to Josh's dorm. He's like, oh, okay. I'm going to dinner. So if you can just leave it outside the building where we have dinner. I was like, yeah, I guess. But it's just like, I'm just glad he didn't even try to fight me on that one. I'm glad I just said security reason. He goes, okay.
Yeah, you just accepted it. That's good.
That's good. Yeah.
Just-
I'm not going to walk in the rain. I'm not going to lie. It's not good.
Dude, I went running in the rain earlier. I had to.
Yeah, it's because you
School.
wanted your Rocky moment.
No, it's for an assignment I'm doing for school. I have to run two weeks straight and not take the Sabbath off because I'm testing to see if God's word is true. And spoiler alert, my legs really hurt and you should obey the Bible.
Mm-hmm. Is your phone on silent, Josh, this time?
It is. It's
No.
on vibrate. Let's go on Do Not Disturb this time. You guys are going to hear my roommate flush
No.
the toilet at some point.
Yeah, that's going to happen.
He's
But
in there now. It's
It's
only
off
a
the
matter
cuff
of time.
anyway.
It's true.
Yeah.
Well, Nat,
Yes, you said you wanted to ask me a
I
question.
do. I have a question.
What is the
I've
question?
had this question in the back of my head since we filmed the last episode,
And
but
I
I couldn't tell you because then it wouldn't be off the cuff. So
Yeah, and I complete the fifth as well. I'm one of the only
it's
few
true.
people here who
you don't
knows
have
what the
to
fifth
answer
is.
this question, but I think you'll like it. So one thing I've noticed, right? All right, you're not an American citizen, but you love American politics. You love America in general as a country. You always have. So America is supposed to be the country of free speech, and yet it seems like out of all my friends, you, who's not an American citizen, who didn't grow up with free speech, at least I don't know what Australia's laws are on free speech, but you seem to be the most proud proponent of freedom of speech. And not only that, but like Americans, my other friends who've grown up with free speech seem to feel the need to apologize for things that they've said that are controversial, even if they don't contradict God's word. Like, why is it that you are such a big proponent of freedom of speech, and why is it that why do you think it is that Americans apologize for what they say, even though they have a right to say it, and you don't feel that same need?
Good question, Josh. And I wish you would name the people who have been apologizing for what they said, because I could talk to them about that. No, but that's good. That's a good question. I think it just comes from this understanding of like in Australia, we can say something like, I don't like my prime minister, or you can make jokes about that, and you're not going to worry about it. The problem is, it's not like we're binded by some constitution that says you're guaranteed freedom of speech. That's a problem. And a lot of Western democracies are like that, where, of course, you can criticize certain things, but like you can actually get in trouble. In certain countries, of course, in Canada, even Australia, New Zealand, all these European countries, if you so-called share a conspiracy theory, or you may criticize the wrong group, you can get in. It becomes a legal issue. You can go to prison for that.
It's true.
And I think, I'm not comparing myself to these people, but I think people who grew up, we always hear stories about like people who flee Russia during communism and during the Cold War, and then they take asylum in America, and then you often find they're like the biggest proponents of free speech because they didn't get to say what they wanted back in that country, and they want to tell the truth. They didn't get to where they were from.
Right.
Now they can do it here. Now, it's not a lot of things that I say on a day-to-day basis I would be fine in Australia, obviously. One day something happens, I was a public figure, who knows the way things are going, I could get myself in trouble, because the thing about democracy, as the saying goes, is two wolves voting for who to eat, right? Something along the lines of that. The point being is that one of the founding fathers said that, and I think what was good about having, the founding fathers of this country was they understood that a direct democracy makes no sense, because we see the way people can so easily fall for propaganda. You can see how much the culture has changed even in the past 10 years. And there's a lot of things you cannot get away with saying. But when you have something like the Bill of Rights, which guarantees you can say, you have the freedom of speech. As controversial or heinous something that someone can say, they're protected. And in some way, if the most heinous people in society can not worry about facing any trouble for what they're saying, and if they're protected, then so are we in some sense.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, it's like the way Australia is going, we can very well lose free speech forever. But I think with America, it's a lot slower and a lot harder, more difficult to just get rid of that and throw that off. And look, there's a whole debate about, well, there's free speech, but we're against hate speech kind of thing. No matter what, you got the First Amendment, you got a republic, a constitutional republic, and I think that's a better form of government protecting the rights that are given to all mankind.
Okay, so do you think, because that was kind of the second part of my question, like why Americans, despite having free speech, like our generation seems so afraid to speak their mind, to speak out against like the cultural norm. They get very uncomfortable as soon as someone expresses a different opinion. Do you think that's why we see like cancel culture and stuff like that, because they know that they can't take freedom of speech from us because it's protected by the Constitution? So do you think there's a big push like to use society to kind of shame people from speaking their mind, to use social norms to keep people from speaking their mind, even though they have a right to?
Yes, we definitely can see, we can definitely see many examples of people who have been discouraged to speak the truth, even if the way they come across it is not particularly well said, or maybe the best way put. It almost doesn't matter at this point. You can craft the most, sensitive way of addressing an issue, but the matter is right nowadays, if you don't share like a general consensus that society teaches, especially in these public universities, you basically move out. If you're not, like, look, I'm just going to go straight to Trump, okay? The reason Trump can still go on, keep saying the same things he said back in 2015, is really because he was a rich man. He has nothing to lose in a lot of ways by him saying what he wanted to say. Here's an example. I mean, we're going to get political about here. I mean, no matter what, when we talk about speech, nowadays it's a political issue. But, Trump, back in 2015, everyone knows, he famously said, he talked about Mexico, and he talked about how when Mexico sends their people, they're not sending people like you or me, to bring drugs, to bring crime, they're rapists, and some which I assume are good people. Maybe you may say that's not the best way to put it, but his point was just to say, look, they're not the same type of people like you and I, okay? They come from a different background, and the problem is that country is so corrupt, they're sending, not the best people. They're sending the criminals over, And not everyone who comes over the border is a criminal, but it's to say that this is an issue, and we need to have secured borders. I mean, that's really what he was just trying to say. And, of course, because that's a very controversial issue, and many people disagree with it, it gets taken like, hey, you can't say that. But is it the truth, no matter what? I think we are so now hyperfixated on we don't really see that society has decided we're not going to say the truth. We rather just appear as open-minded and as gentle as possible. It's really just come from this liberal belief that all people are the same. And I mean, liberalism in its true form believes that everyone is equal, and the reason why some people are richer, some people are smarter, some people are in different places in society is because some sort of inequality has stopped the poorer people from getting to the 1%, that really comes from a belief, instead of this belief that actually people are very different. And I think God made us different, and I think our cultures reflect that. And the problem is, pointing stuff like that goes against a liberal doctrine. Is this committed religious belief, not in an actual God, but focused, hyperfixated on this position that has been taken. That of course you can't. Like, for example, if someone says to me, "I don't believe in God," and starts blaspheming, I'll be offended. I said, "Hey, you can't say that." In the same way, for people from the left, if you say something that's against their belief, you're going against their God, which is secular humanism, and belief. I don't know how political we need to get here, but that's I'm not sure if I really directly answered the question because I was not really prepared for this.
I
but
know it's off the cuff. We gotta.
It
hear
is
what
off
you,
the
what you
cuff.
really think.
But just to summarize, is this how much our society has changed? Really, we just don't value truth anymore. We value, we don't value diversity of opinion. Diversity,
It's
but
true.
not in opinion. It's amazing because, when I did open air evangelism, when we're going out spreading the gospels throughout the city, the guy who was leading the team, he was telling me how it was so different not so long ago, where you were able to have a conversation with people. Like, people may disagree with you. They may be pagan, they may be atheist, whatever it is, but they'll kind of be like, that's interesting. At least I'll think about it. But now we have this thing in our society, like everyone has places their identity in the wrong things, and disagreeing with them is like you're attacking me. Correcting people is like you're attacking me. Like, we can't have this kind of disagreement. And
that's
really,
true.
that's not contributed to just advocacy for free speech. Because, well, we are for it, but you said something that I didn't like, so we can't say that. Forgetting the fact that free speech is free speech.
Yeah.
You have to be comfortable with things. I, as a Christian, need to be in environments that are uncomfortable to me, so I can be a light unto others, so I can be become all things to all men.
Yeah. No, that's true, because even outside of religious circles, that's one thing that I've learned from higher education so far, is that true learning begins when you're exposed to multiple points of view, right? Like, if you're just exposed to one point of view, you know every talking point, but you haven't really learned to think for yourself. You've really just learned to, I guess, kind of parrot what the previous generation has said. That's kind of how Paul Washer likes to put it. He's a pastor, and he says we have a lot of like theologians that are just parroting what they've heard, but they don't either haven't experienced it for themselves, or they don't understand it because they've never had to wrestle with other points of view. They just stay in their own camp. They hear from the same people over and over again, and it's, I don't know, it's sad, and it seems like our culture is getting more and more like that. But yeah, we really dove in deep there, Nat. Right out the gate.
Conclusion: I don't think someone's really human unless they hold to some beliefs that they were uncomfortable hearing it at first, but they realize it's true. And they also recognizing that some of the beliefs that they may hold will be going against the grain of society. But, I mean, I don't know. I don't really find that at this point anyone's really free if they hold all the check boxes of what society thinks is okay to say.
It's true.
And I don't know how much we can get into that, but, maybe that's going to be for another off-the-cuff episode. But I really enjoy how we just press the record button and we can just say whatever we want. There's been times when I'm like, yes, I want to talk to Josh about this, but then I forget. And it's like, that's good, because then we can somehow, some way, it'll make its way to an episode.
That's true.
Yeah. And then we got dead air. What do we talk about now?
Dead air. Well, Nat.
You know what? I do want to say something.
All right.
The election is in 20 days. Now, I'm not Elon Musk, okay?
It's true.
But in a way, I am him in the sense that not born in America, didn't grow up in America, but has just come to the country and just in his way he contributes it through business. I want to be a missionary in this country. I believe that's what God has called me to. But I care deeply about the country, and I care about the issues, which ties into my interest in learning the history and political system of this country. And it's amazing to me how a lot of people in our generation, especially friends, may be voting for the first time, and they obviously didn't, because I started getting political maybe towards in 2016, and 2017 was when I really started listening to commentaries and starting to read about it. But a lot of people forget or don't even know at all what it was like before Trump came in. Trump came in and he changed everything. The way
true.
it was meant to go was this. Okay, Obama gets out of office, Hillary Clinton comes in, and then who was she going to go up against? Jeb Bush, George Bush's brother. Who, no one really likes George Bush because of the Iraq War. That's the main reason. And because of that really hurt the chances of having a Republican president for 8 years. They had Obama, and Hillary Clinton presented herself as Obama's third term. Okay, No one could have defeated her. But then here comes Trump. He was not meant to ever. Like, he always dabbled in running for politics, and he finally got committed to it. And he had to go against the Republican Party. He had to debate them all, and he had to destroy them. He destroyed the Bush dynasty because Jeb Bush was meant to win. He was the only one who could defeat Hillary Clinton. He had the not to use the Hebrew word, he had the chutzpah to do it, put it that way, No, for real. And he was not meant to win. He won. And then the election got rigged in 2020. They took advantage of COVID and the ballots, and that's a whole nother story. And he's out of office. And we've seen what Joe Biden's like, who was the vice president of Barack Obama. And the last 4 years have been terrible. The war in Ukraine, the situation with Israel, inflation, the economy. People are starting to notice that, and they really realize that actually Trump was better when they were president. Because I still remember growing up, because Australia was very lucky to avoid the recession. We had a little bit of a different history. Because of all our natural resources and because China was a growing economy, they bought all of our gold, our iron ore and our coal, and that basically prevented us from getting into the recession. Up until COVID, I think we were the leading country without going into recession, So we were doing well economically. I think at one point the Australian dollar was actually worth more than the US dollar at one point, actually. Oh, wow. And this was during Obama's time. That makes sense. And I remember being in my economics class in high school, and we were talking about how great the American economy was actually doing compared to ours when Trump came into office, actually. Now, we didn't directly credit Trump. My teacher didn't, but Trump was president during that time. And the GDP in America was a lot better. The situation was a lot better. Everything that they said Trump was going to be, like how horrible he was, Joe Biden came into fruition to do it. When Trump was president, the economy was growing, jobs were being created. He was bringing manufacturing back. Countries were making peace deals with Israel. Russia didn't attack Ukraine that time. Another thing is that gas didn't cost as much. And Trump was like the first president, really, in this modern time, to meet with the North Korean president. Like, that was unprecedented. Like, at one point, he talked about blowing up North Korea, and then he went to, yes, let's make peace with North Korea. And it's like, everything that people thought Trump was going to be like, it didn't happen. And that all got destroyed in the last 4 years. And the point is, like, why is he telling me this? Why am I listening to this? The point is, I want people to recognize the importance of voting this election. Okay, yes, you may not like Trump, you may not like his personality, he may not be an actual Christian, but at the end of the day, you're not voting for the Pope. Okay, you're voting for a leader, you're voting for someone that is going to put the country in a better position. And Trump is not openly hostile to Christians, and his policies, if anything, help our cause more, honestly. Yeah. So I think it makes sense to vote for Trump. And people always go, oh, but, Governor DeSantis is better, or J.D. Vance's VP nominee is better, and all that. It's like, those guys were nothing without Trump, okay? That's really the reality of it.
Yeah, we wouldn't. And that's the interesting thing, too, is he really, for people that just kind of, didn't care about politics until, Trump kind of came in and shook up the scene,
I think got people into politics, if anything.
And that's the interesting thing is I think most people our age voting in this election are going to be coming at it from the perspective of they know who Trump is. They know this guy, he's well established. Everyone kind of has their opinion of him, your caricature of him, big orange man, whatever. But people know who he is, they know what he stands for, right? Because, he may say the same talking points over and over, but at least people know what he stands for, right? The border, his economic policies, his policies for the Middle East. But I think back to the 2016 election, and it was so the opposite. People had no idea who this guy was. And I think the Republican Party rightfully was divided, and they were scared, and they didn't trust this guy. He had a lot of money, and he was coming in, and he was just basically using his money to silence the competition and rise to the top quickly. That and his knowledge of marketing and having been on TV, he knew how to just make fun of people. And so people were nervous. But then you look at the 2024 Republican National Convention, and you see it was right after Trump had the assassination attempt, right? And People were all worried. They hadn't heard from him. I think it was his first public appearance since then. And I remember watching an interview with Michael Knowles and I think it was his Don Jr., I think is who it was, his son.
Okay.
And they were talking about that. They were talking about how in 2016 it was very much, they came to the convention and people didn't want them there.
Mm-hmm.
And then now he shows up in 2024 as a hero. And I think people really, he really has the trust that he didn't have back then, that he kind of had to earn. And I think even a lot of people on the left and a lot of the people in the center now are looking at him and saying, listen, it's kind of weird, but this guy that we didn't trust is now kind of looking like the safe option. Like, you might not like everything about him, but at least you know who he is. You know what you're going to get with him, you know? You don't know what you're going to get with Kamala. You really don't. You're going to get at least more of the same, but you don't know how much, you don't know how radical she's going to be.
It's funny because I think in an interview recently, when she does do interviews, which is like once in a blue moon, she basically said she would change nothing from Joe Biden's presidency. And if you relive, I mean, anyone who's listening has lived under the last 4 years, and you've seen the results. And, I get, like, is less of a risk to vote for Trump this election than it was in 2020 and then when it was in 2016. 2016, understandable, because he was outside as possible, and he used that to his advantage to get in. I mean, the reason why Trump even can exist and can even win is because of how dissatisfied the average American was.
That's true.
With the establishment on both sides of the party.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, okay, Trump, at the end of the day, you just look at his policies, okay? And I get it. People go, I like his policies, but I just don't like the person. That's good enough. Don't vote. Because it's really a different presidency under Kamala, okay? That's really just the truth, okay? Trump put in those Supreme Court judges, which ultimately turned over Roe v. Wade, which gave the abortion rights back to the states, okay? Now I hear some parts of Christians complaining, well, he's not really, like, aligned with us on abortion and all that. So it's like, okay, but yes, he may not be an authentic Christian, but his actions actually have helped the cause of Christians, have actually helped fight for pro-life, and he's actually been he saved lives from that at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, and obviously
there's no middle ground.
Yeah,
of the other side.
Put it this way: if your thing is you want to vote for a Christian candidate, it's if you want a Christian candidate to become the next president of the United States, your best option is to pray that one of the existing candidates will come to know Christ, because at this point it's going to be one or the other. So you might as well, pray for both of them to know the Lord. But I mean, if you're planning on voting for a third party just because they're a Christian, you're wasting your vote, in my opinion. Yeah. At this point.
And Trump was so amazing in how he campaigned. Like, he flipped over states that were meant to be Democrat voting blocks. Okay, in 2016, the consensus was Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, we're going to go for Democrats, okay, because of the blue-collar working class. He appealed to them because he talked about the trade deals and how horrible it was that manufacturing was leaving the country. He got those votes, barely got it over. And if you say your vote doesn't matter, people voted back then, and that changed the fate of the country. Okay, now, because of Trump, under his presidency, okay, Florida even back then was a swing state.
It was.
All the previous
is crazy to
they
think
went
about.
For the longest time in history, it was known that Florida was a swing state. Okay, George Bush only won that state by 500 votes. That was a crazy time. Now, from the time Trump has won it to now, it's become a Republican state. And you know why? Because Trump actually endorsed Governor DeSantis, okay, in, I believe, the 2018 midterm election. And Governor DeSantis' opponent was this black homosexual dude. Not even true. It's true. He prostituted himself to other men with drugs. This is a known story.
Back to Nat's free speech.
As left-wing as possible. And now Florida is known as one of the most conservative states. Like, Democrats have just straight up given up trying to campaign that state. Like, they've given up.
It's true. And the people are happy.
And Florida is known as the free state of Florida.
Yeah, we've lived in New York now, and we've lived in Florida. I'll tell you, the average citizen of Florida is a lot happier than the average citizen of New York.
And DeSantis barely even won against that guy back in 2018. 2022, under his policies that have changed the nation, changed the state, and a lot of people are moving there because they love the policies. He won like 59% of the vote, even bigger margin. And Trump even won an even bigger margin in Florida in 2020. You know, and Florida carries a lot of electoral votes, like 29 or something like that. It's one of the fastest growing states, while California and New York are losing their population. I mean, look, put it that way. Like, honestly, yeah, that he changed that state. Like, him alone, like him being in charge and his endorsements have been beneficial to the country. That's just the reality. And if you think, I don't know, if you think, like, you can hope all you want for a better candidate after Trump, but reality is you got Trump and Harris. And as Josh said, a third party is not going to vote. Sitting back and not going to vote at all is not going to help at all, if anything, you know? So I'll leave it at that.
Well, Nat, we're 25 minutes into this podcast. We've probably lost most of our audience if they don't care about politics.
Well, anyway, we get time stamps you can skip. I mean, look, he took 2 times, he nearly got assassinated. I think he's more than proven himself that he cares about the country.
What does our opinion matter at this point?
And honestly, it ties into the free speech. Like, people like Trump, it's like inspiring in the sense that he is still going to go out and say what he believes to be true. He still shows his love for his country, you know? So what are you really got to be afraid of at the end of the day?
True. It's true.
That, I mean, look, that's just how it is. What do you think about the Lego movie, Josh? Okay. The Lego.
I was gonna say we gotta talk about like Goldfish or something like that.
No. The Lego
movie.
The Lego Pharrell Williams movie. We haven't watched it yet.
We haven't watched it yet. I was telling Nat the other day in the car. First of all, why would you want to watch it?
It's Lego.
The original. Okay, it is Lego. There's also the Lego set that is a rainbow, all right, that talks about, you know, support every gender there is.
Josh, if you watched the Barbie
just because it's
movie,
Lego,
you watched the Barbie movie.
I did watch the Barbie movie,
and I bet you the Lego Pharrell Williams movie is probably better than the Barbie movie.
Well, there's a lot of backstory. All right, which direction we want to go with this? I did watch the Barbie movie. I didn't enjoy it.
Yes or no? Did you watch the Barbie movie?
I did watch the Barbie movie.
Okay, then we're done.
All right, well, I didn't say I liked it, but anyway. So listen, you got the original Lego movie, all right? Chris Pratt. Glorious, beautiful. You got the second Lego movie, is pretty mid. You got the Lego Batman movie. All right, the Lego Batman movie is fantastic. All right, it's I would say equal to, if not better than, the original Lego movie. And not only that, I would say that second only to The Dark Knight. I think the Lego Batman movie is one of the best Batman movies ever made.
I like it.
It's pretty good.
I mean, my favorite movie, forget about Lego for a second, honestly, my favorite movie is Back to the Future.
I think that's
a solid opinion.
It's a solid movie. And, you know, there's a lot to that movie. It's a lighthearted movie, and I think it stands the test of time.
I think because of we passed 2015, 10 years ago, and obviously we could look back and laugh at a lot of things that didn't come true. But,
Except the Mets winning the World Series.
No, it was the Cubs.
Oh, it was the Cubs. See, this is
but
how
I
little
really
know
respect
about
that movie because I watched like a behind the scenes documentary one time because I have like the 30th anniversary trilogy on Blu-ray, and they were talking about how they wanted to cast Michael J. Fox for the movie. Okay, he was very popular in the 80s. He was on Family Ties. He was he was like his career was taking off in Hollywood. They wanted him. He couldn't do it because he was filming the show Family Ties, which was just like a really popular 80s sitcom. So he casted this guy, Eric Stoltz, who is apparently known to be like a method actor. You don't even know. A lot of people don't even know his name nowadays.
Yep.
I don't know his name. I'm sure my parents know who he was because he was in a lot of movies during that period. But they casted him, and they were filmed for like a few weeks, and then they realized, no, this is not working out because he does not. The way his acting style doesn't really fit in with what we're trying to go for.
He was taking it way too serious.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So they decided to like let's try to go back to Michael J. Fox, and they basically had to work out this deal where they had to film Back to the Future at night. Immediately after he finishes filming Family Ties, he goes and films Back to the Future at night. And people are like, why does it matter? Well, it's because the fact that Universal had to delay the filming and they had to make a lot of changes, and it still ended up being a really good movie, Like nowadays, it's like I'm not even excited for any kind of movie. Anytime nowadays I see production delayed for a video game, for a TV series, for a movie, I'm not excited at all. I mean, COVID was an excuse to delay stuff, of course. The writer's strike was an excuse to delay stuff. But when it gets released, it's pretty subpar and not really worth watching at the end of the day. But this is like a movie where it's like you can tell there's a lot of craft and care put into it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, it's not like some big family movie, whatever. But like, I feel like the comedy and the lines, and the characters are just memorable.
Yeah, no, see, this is something me and you were talking about the other day. I forget who brought it up. I think I was actually watching maybe it was I think I was watching a interview with Dennis Quaid, who was just in the Reagan movie, which that was a good movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was that they were talking about how, or maybe it was someone else, but they were talking about how no, I know what it was. It was Matt Walsh talking about his new movie, Am I Racist? And he was talking about the reason that Christian movies were pretty subpar for a while is the same reason that most Hollywood movies are pretty subpar now. And it's that you have, two sides trying to produce a piece of art and trying to get a message out there, right? The Christians are trying to get, obviously, the gospel out there, which I agree with, I think they should. And then they're also trying to produce a piece of art. And for the longest time, Christian movies, they were pretty mid for a while because
it looked like they were filmed on an iPhone kind of quality.
Yeah, well, and the thing was they were putting the message before the art. But if someone's going to see a movie, they want to see a good piece of art. And you were kind of getting, the gospel over and over again, which isn't a bad thing. But it got a little boring a while. The way they were framing it,
and we just have to step back and be realistic. The way they portray people who are secular, it's like watching a cartoon villain,
Right.
You're right. The message was way too
what is the God's Not Dead?
Yes,
that guy didn't represent any real atheist ever.
He was a cartoon villain.
He was a cartoon villain. There, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. But now you see that's what Hollywood's doing is they're trying to push their liberal agenda, and at the cost of that is true, meaningful art that like actually moves you.
And let's talk about stuff that we can actually prove. Like, we know that they don't value art. They value pushing DEI. They value pushing their political agenda, and this is stuff we can actually prove because this is a known fact. It's really an open secret. You cannot win an Oscar. You cannot even hope to win an Oscar if you don't have a certain cast that is a minority. You can't even get nominated for awards if you don't. The cast doesn't feature some gay people too.
This is
a known fact. Okay,
just look it up.
And that's why you see in the past 10 years how much has changed because they don't value making the art. They don't value that. They value putting the message first, and then hopefully they really come around to it. Then they will put some effort into the art. And we know this because look. Just to. I think one last thing we should talk about is just the fact that yesterday I was actually ranting to you about the fact that there's no male spaces, like things for us to enjoy.
That's true. They took away our cigar lounges.
Our bowling clubs, every night. But the point is, it's like Star Wars. Everyone always knew that it was men really like it. The average guy more or less liked it. You may not be nerdy, like collecting action figures, but a lot of guys grew up watching the Clone Wars, like grew up, fighting with lightsabers. It doesn't appeal to women. And instead of going like,
that's okay.
And instead of going, that's okay. They got their own thing. They got Gilmore Girls or something, or Hunger Games, Twilight. Yeah, Sabrina the Teenage Witch or whatever. They decided, of course, because we don't live in a world that prioritizes, meritocracy, but mediocrity.
We had to let them have Star Wars too.
Lucasfilm is the CEO. They put a woman in, and then they made sure to have all the producers, like people writing the shows, to be women. They had a quota for that, and we can see with the new Star Wars Acolyte show, it's really terrible. It's
horrible.
I think the director straight up admitted that she didn't even watch the previous Star Wars movie, or she knows very little about it. It's like. Yeah. That's the thing, no care or crafted. It's like, okay, this is what I want to promote.
Well, that's the funny thing. That was the most ironic thing is we were talking about this, and Nat was like literally like, okay, is nothing sacred anymore? What are they going to take from the guys next? He said, next thing you know, the women will be trying to take John Wick from us. And Nat didn't even know, but they've already cast they released the trailer, some movie called The Ballerina about a female assassin that's coming out, you know, a John Wick movie with a female lead where she's going to be just as strong as he is, you know, girl boss.
I feel like she would be it.
No, it's not Zendaya. I think it's some Russian girl because the whole Russian ballet thing. I'm still probably gonna watch it. I don't know, you know, biblical principles and all that. I don't know, but
it's like just
it's like, come on, did we really need that? Okay, first of all, and did we need a fourth John Wick movie anyway? Just let it die, trilogy, and then end, and no female reboot.
The suspension of disbelief, like really, a 5'5" woman is gonna take down Russian agents or something. Like, come on, let's be real for a second.
Although it is the John Wick universe, so if John Wick can get hit by like 5 cars in the same movie, then, you know, whatever. You have to suspend your disbelief anyway.
I don't know, man. I'm trying to think right now. What is like something that they haven't taken? I'm sure there is one thing. I guess Die Hard.
I guess. Well, Nat, in true off-the-cuff fashion, we just slotted this in at a random time, and I have to go because I have what we call home group. So I'm supposed to be in the parking lot right now. Actually, a minute ago.
So you better run.
We're gonna have to end this episode here, and I might have to see if I can get someone to pick me up at my dorm.
Oh well, that's the conclusion. It was a little bit ranty, but just to, you know, briefly summarize it, you should vote this election.
It's true.
And you should vote for Trump. Okay, I already more or less off the cuff gave my reasons as to why. Okay, and we talked about the fact that what cinematic art is no longer exists.
Not every movie has to appeal to every demographic.
Yeah. Sometimes there's part of me that says maybe we should just plan a topic beforehand, but then it's kind of like, you know what, this is really, let's be honest, we know we're not going to have an audience, but we just kind of made this for us, really.
It's true.
For us to just say our opinions.
Yeah.
Like, and you know that because of the way society is and you can't really share your opinions like openly as you used to, is why a show like this exists in some way, in some fashion, where we can just say what we need off the cuff, uninterrupted. Anyway, to conclude, we got no sponsors to thank for anyway. All right, that's it.
This has been Off the Cuff. If you're still here, thanks for sticking with us.
Why are you still here?
Yeah, why are you here? Bye.